All right. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for coming out or coming in and being out, looking out, whatever you want to call it. So tonight we're going to try to answer a lot of the questions that you may have about police officers that you don't even always get a chance to ask us. So I've got a big list of questions, so we want to get to them. We may not get to all of them, but I want to get to a lot of them. And I'm going to combine some of them so that we can get as many in as we can. So you guys are really lucky. We've got some outstanding people on here, some outstanding officers and sheriffs. So I'm going to let them introduce themselves. And when they do, I'm going to ask them to tell us how long you've been in police work, what your agency you work for, what your duties are, because all of us don't have the same duties. We have some are in patrol, some are in administrative, which means we help run things, and some are in training. So we all don't have the same duties as the other people do. So we want you to share that, maybe a little bit of how long you've been involved in LETR. So I'm looking at Barb right now. So let's start with Barb, please.
Hi, everybody. Barbara Natoli. I'm with Montgomery County Police. I've been with Montgomery County Police for 26 years now, and still counting, still working, still loving the job. Currently, I work at our training academy. So my job is to coordinate the field training. So when an officer graduates the police academy, they go out on the road and they do what's called field training, where they work with another officer. So I am in charge of that program. And then when we have some officers that may struggle in the program, I will actually go out and patrol with them to help get them through the program. As far as torch run, been in the torch run, I've actually been running torch runs since 1995 when I started the department. I don't know if you can see my sweatshirt, but that's the 1997 Polar Bear Plunge, the first one. That's when I started actively getting involved with torch run. But I didn't know I was, not until a few years later when I met Jimmy Myrick, and then I actually fell in love with the torch run movement with Special Olympics. So thanks for having me.
Thank you, Barb. Joe.
How are you? So good evening, everyone. As the chief just alluded to, my name is Joe Alton. A lot of you already know me. I've been a police officer for now just shy of 29 years. I actually worked at another police department for almost a little over 26 years. And I retired, and then I came to work where I work now, up at the Havre Police Department, which is up in Harford County, Maryland, all the way up in the northeast corner of the great state. And so what do I do? That's a good question. My title is the Commander of Administrative Services, which quite honestly is a little bit of everything in a small department. My obvious responsibilities is I do help run a department as far as I supervise all the civilian staff. I supervise our dispatch center. I have to maintain all of our financial records as far as buying all the stuff that you would never really think that is not police work. But in reality, it is, because you have to make sure, just like almost like a small business, we have to make sure all of that stuff is maintained as well. So that's kind of just a quick, I guess, overview.
Thank you, Joe. Amber.
Hi, everybody. I'm Deputy Amber Blackmire. I work for the Frederick County Sheriff's Office out in Western Maryland. I've been involved with the law enforcement torch run and Special Olympics for 2 different time frames. My sister Anna has Down syndrome, so I've been aware of Special Olympics for over 30 years now. But participating in the law enforcement torch run as a law enforcement officer, a police officer, I've been doing it for about 7 years. So it's been a great opportunity. I love you guys. You guys are my inspiration. My job at the Frederick County Sheriff's Office is not just to drive around and catch bad guys, but a lot of my job is to educate the community. So I do the torch run. I'm in charge of coordinating, creating our torch run here for the Frederick County Sheriff's Office, but I also work for the police department, which is responsible for police work inside the city, and I'm responsible for the county. So we work together hand in hand, and we do a lot of education programs. I go to the schools, I go to elderly communities, and I talk about a lot of programs that we offer to help people keep safe and to be smart about trying to be less of a victim and be more educated.
All right, thank you, Amber. We saved our torch run director for last. Frank.
Well, I appreciate that. How you doing? I've been a police officer for over 30 years. I wore this hat first in Baltimore County. Then I went to the Wycomico County Sheriff's Office, wore a hat like that. Then I went to the Anne Arundel County Police Department, wore a hat like that. And then back to the Anne Arundel County Sheriff's Office where I work now. I am the Chief Deputy and I am in charge of all operations at the Sheriff's Office here in Anne Arundel County. And our operations include the courthouse. We protect the courthouse and staff the courtrooms. We serve warrants out in the community, and we serve all kinds of civil and court orders that the judges issue. And I have been involved with the torch run since 2009, where I started taking photographs. And then in 2012, I organized and did the Anne Arundel County Police Department's torch run for that year. And then after being involved with Special Olympics for a few years, I realized that actually in 1990, the year after I graduated from the police academy, I had run my first torch run in Wycomico County on Route 50. It was a bit of a surprise, but when I put 2 and 2 together and realized that that June week that we spent running was actually my first torch run. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
All right, so those are our panelists. So we've got a lot of great questions. We're going to start with one from Nick Clark. And given Frank's background a little bit, we have to answer it because I know what my answer is, but we're going to start with Frank. Frank, do you like donuts?
Do I like donuts? Absolutely, I love donuts. My favorite is the cruller. Does anybody know what a cruller is? Look, I got him back. Somewhere on here is a cruller. But I think most police officers like donuts, and the reason I think that that's a joke is because back before stores like Wawa and 7-Eleven were 24 hours, it was the donut shop serving coffee late into the evening and early in the morning. And that's why police officers could catch a quick meal at a donut shop. And so cops, donuts, cops, that's how it became a thing. I love donuts.
All right, anybody else want to weigh in on the donut issue? I know it's controversial. Joe?
Oh, I love donuts, but I refuse to eat them while I'm in uniform so that I don't get picked on.
There you go. Joe?
Boston cream.
I will absolutely throw it out there that I don't like donuts.
No!
I am that guy that does not like donuts.
Joe's not real
However,
police.
That being said,
Joe's not real police. Nope, he's an imposter.
but see, here's the deal. I have no problem telling you that I will tear up a cheese Danish or a really good blueberry muffin.
He's a sophisticated pastry lover.
That's right.
Ooh la
Danish
la.
is just a donut without a hole.
He's bougie.
Hey, that's what the Boston cream donuts. That's my favorite. They don't
That's
have a
my
hole.
favorite. Yep.
You get more out of it.
Mhm.
All right, now that we've got the weighty topic out of the way first, we're going to combine a couple questions here. So what does these come from Anu, Christine? Yeah, Anu and Christine. So what does being a police officer mean to you and why do you do it? Amber, we'll start with you this time.
That's a really, really heavy question. For me personally, I joined law enforcement to be the voice for those who don't have one. I know that as a police officer, I'm coming to people's houses on the worst day of their life. So if I can be that person to kind of be the ear for them to cry to or to yell at or to kind of just feel like they have someone to actually listen to them rather than yell at them or tell them that they're wrong. That's really why I joined law enforcement. When I was younger, I had nothing but great experiences with law enforcement. And I thought it was the coolest thing in the world that, you know, you got to wear a uniform every day. You didn't have to worry about your clothes. You had a uniform. You got to have fun tools. You were constantly learning, but you could go anywhere in the world and help people. And that's really why I love doing what I do and why I chose to be law enforcement.
All right. Frank, what about you?
It's hard to say a lot of the different reasons why I like being a police officer, but being a police officer, to me, it's really neat because I feel like we're a guardian of the public, where we're providing safety through our jobs. And so being a guardian of the public kind of goes hand in hand with being guardian of the flame. There's nothing more I'd want to do than to solve a problem and make something better for somebody else. And when I got involved in Special Olympics, I learned that what I had been doing all along as a police officer was what Special Olympics was all about, and the torch run for support of Special Olympics.
All right, Barb.
Well, I joined because I watched a cousin of mine who was a canine officer in Pennsylvania, and also went into the Federal Bureau of Investigation, so he went federal. But I was always, just thought everything he did was amazing, and admired law enforcement officers and federal officers. So I wanted to get involved, and I believed in helping the community. So that is why I joined. But then once I got in it, I realized that I really liked investigating things. I liked figuring out the puzzles, and that's the thing that I like the most, is especially when you have someone who's been wronged. I like to be able to figure out the who done it. So I really enjoyed that. And then obviously now I have all of you guys in my life, so law enforcement has led me to some amazing family members that I have through Special Olympics.
All right, and Joe.
So I like the aspect of being a part of one giant team. Regardless of whether or not you're a police officer here in Maryland or a police officer in another country for that matter, we all, for the most part, have a very similar and specific job where, again, police work is police work, no matter where you go. And so we're all like one giant team. Looking around this panel right now, I'm looking at you, Chief. You have a white shirt on. Frank has a brown shirt on. I have a blue. Barb and Amber have different color shirts. Shirt color doesn't matter in police work. And for that matter, it doesn't matter what color your badge is, that kind of thing. Police work is one giant team. And so that aspect in general is just fulfilling, knowing that, and I'll steal some of the words that Amber had used, that, being a police officer, sometimes we are there for you at your worst of times, but also sometimes at your best of times. And knowing that we can always rely back on those members of our team to get advice, to get, kind of words of encouragement. And so that kind of spins into obviously becoming part of this LETR team. We get to travel and meet people from all over the world, and we realize that we're all in it for one collective goal, so to speak, and that's working with you all. And so it's just a neat aspect.
I think Joe wins that round.
So I'm going to spin off of something he said. We'll go to a question that came from Manu, Michael, and David. And what is the best thing about being a police officer? And Barb, we'll start with you this time. You're chuckling.
Honestly, it's the athletes of Special Olympics. I mean,
Oh, that's a softball answer.
but
I was going
it's
to say,
true.
that's just, oh man, play your audience.
It's true, though. It totally is true, because I loved every aspect of my job, but when I actually got involved with Special Olympics, it made it so much better. And for those of you that know my husband, James, he's also an officer. The hardest thing he ever had to do was put in his retirement papers. So he's retiring soon. He's in our drop program, so he'll be done November 2021. And he said the only thing that made him not want to retire was because of the athletes of Special Olympics, and he couldn't put those medals around your necks because he won't be in uniform anymore. So that's something that, I mean, honestly, you guys are what really keeps me going. So I love it. So yes, it might be textbook, but it's the truth.
All right, Joe, top that.
So I'll just say, interestingly enough, I wrote some notes down to your question. So I'm going to just read what I had wrote. It's just simply having the ability to do something right for your community. Those of you, as I said originally, what's really cool for me is when I retired 2 years ago and came to work for the police department that I work at now is actually the police department for the city that I live in. And so having that opportunity to do something which I never thought I wanted to do as far as work in my own backyard, but once I started doing it, you truly get a real good sense of community. And so yes, my other department obviously much larger and really served a much bigger community. The fact of the matter is you do always have that opportunity to do something right. Quick point of personal privilege, though, Barb, I'm going to say back to you. Let James know we're always hiring laterals up in Havre.
One more midnight, too.
I will pass that on, because he's actually also been talking to Nesky about that too.
Yeah, and we can always use a good mustache up here.
There you go.
All right, and Frank, let's do you next.
So Joe said opportunity, and I think that's one of the greatest things about being a police officer is the opportunity you have to be different characters at different time. And when I say that, I mean that, sometimes you're the police officer. You have to be the one that makes the call to make the arrest. Sometimes you have to be the one that gets down and dirty with the bad guy to make sure that you're taking them off the street. But there's other times that you get to be a coach. You get to be a mentor, sometimes a priest. Sometimes you're someone's family member. There's so many different roles that you play as a police officer throughout the course of your duties, whether it's at an accident scene, at a family dispute, or out in public and doing things for Special Olympics. There I get to be a cheerleader. So there's so many different roles that you can play while you're in uniform that support the mission of your agency and helps the public. Those opportunities are out there galore, and you just have to grasp them and take advantage of them and do the best that you can. And I always look at it as taking the opportunity to turn something that's a bad situation and making it a better situation or a good situation.
All right. Amber, clean up.
So all in all, athletes, obviously you guys are rock stars and you make my job fantastic. But for me, my favorite part of my job is the fact that I have to go with Tewey on this one, is like the opportunities that we're afforded, not just the career opportunities, but people look at you in a different way. And it kind of helps me hold myself to a strong standard of personal, mental, and spiritual awareness, because once I became a police officer, whether I'm at home or I'm out in the community on duty, I'm always working. So I'm always able to lend a helping hand. And it just makes me feel really good knowing that, you know, I have the community of people no matter where I go. Like Joe said earlier, like I could be I have been in my personal vehicle several times where I've come up on accidents and I've been several hours away from home, but I've been able to assist until the local agency comes and does their job. But I'm able to help out and be a teammate for those people, even though I've never met them. I'll never know them, and I'll never have worked with those people ever again. But it's just that feeling of doing right and doing good things throughout wherever I go, I'm capable of doing it. So that's what I love most about my job.
Great. And you'll see that, you know, depending on what department you're in, what area you're in, police work can be very different. And there is, again, a large variety of opportunities. So we're going to get a little dark here for a second with Michael's question.
Is he still awake?
Yeah, I hope so. It's his question.
He looked a little sleep. Oh, there he is. All right. He looked a little tired.
He's texting.
So Michael's question is, what has been your most terrifying experience as a member of law enforcement?
Ooh.
Your most terrifying. It's an interesting question. Frank, we're going to start with you.
Oh my God, you keep starting with me with the tough ones.
I gave you the donut one earlier.
Yeah, I go back through my career, and there are a lot of situations where I had trepidation, but not necessarily that were terrifying or frightening to a point where I was concerned for my safety. There were times I was concerned for other safeties, and you always have that in emergency type situations. But I guess the two situations that I got in my time that taught me a lesson on how to conduct the rest of my career was, as a rookie, I got involved in an accident. It wasn't a real serious accident because I really was lucky. I hit a tree at about 65 miles an hour, and the two of us that were in the car walked away from it. And that really taught me a lesson. So I guess it was terrifying at the time, but I took it as a learning lesson and learned to be a much better driver as a police officer going down the road. And then the other time that I had a horrifying experience that was just one that brought it home was I was working an off-duty job directing traffic at a church when right down the street, one of our police officers, a fellow police officer, his son fell out of a second-story window, and the son was only 3 years old at the time. And I was the first officer on the scene, and I had to do everything because, you know, the other police officer was there. It was his son. He was a little bit emotional. So I had to handle everything until the fire department got there. And then let me tell you, when you're in those situations, it's like the fire department's taking hours or days to get there. But luckily he was okay. He had to go to the hospital, but he healed up very well. And right now he's a 22-year-old, well-adjusted male who is moving along in his career. So I'm very proud that I was there to mitigate any dangerous situation that night.
Kid stuff that's hard. Amber, let's go second this time.
So I think darkest, scariest time was probably 2 times as well. One was on duty when I was working with someone. I was actually on a call for domestic assault. We were putting the bad guy in the car, and my partner, who I was working with, she was closing the door and almost got hit by a car. So I jumped in my cruiser and I chased after this guy, and it was raining, and we got up to really, really fast speeds, and he was weaving in and out of traffic and flipped his car and got in a really bad accident. It was super scary, but it kind of taught me that I was able to think fast and kind of push through that adrenaline rush, because when you see someone that you work with who is family almost lose their life because someone was choosing to be reckless, you go into almost like a blackout mode of, I'm going to do everything and anything to get this bad guy. And he ended up crashing his vehicle, and I didn't end up getting him, but you know, it was pretty scary knowing that I didn't know if this guy had a gun, because a call prior to had, he was a suspect in shooting someone. So I didn't take that into consideration. So that was pretty scary. I think that was probably one of the fastest and scariest moments on duty. Off duty, I was coming home from court. I used to work in Hagerstown City as a police officer there. I was coming home from court there, and I lived in Frederick at the time. And I observed a lady's car flip a couple times, and I had to be the first one on scene to hold her leg together until the fire engines and police and other EMS were able to come there. But I mean, it really puts your training into perspective. You know, it's not that often that we have to use stuff like that, but that was a very serious accident. I thought she was drunk, but she was eating carrots and hummus while driving and had flipped her car, and her leg was like a teepee, and I had to hold her leg together and call EMS and everybody like that while I was off duty in my personal vehicle. So it's pretty scary stuff, but I was glad that I was able to help her.
That's why I just eat M&Ms when I drive.
Yeah.
Barb.
Yeah.
Did you call me?
Yes.
So my most terrifying was actually an off-duty incident. I was actually in my personal car, and I witnessed a car intentionally run another car off the road. The other car went into a ditch, flipped over, and the occupant who was driving was half hanging out of the driver's window. I stopped because it's what we do. And what was the worst part about it, and why it became even more terrifying than just witnessing that, was that the driver of that car was one of my coworkers from my department. She has never been able to, she's alive, she's well, but she has not been able to come back as a full-fledged law enforcement officer due to the injuries she sustained. But she does work with our department in civilian mode now. But that was pretty terrifying, because not only did I go into police mode, but then I got there and I immediately had a connection. It was a very dear friend of mine. So there was that personal factor that went with it too. We also did catch the bad guy, which was great. He turned out to be someone who was not on his medication and just chose her car to run off the road. There was absolutely no reason. But that was my most terrifying.
Oof. Joe.
So mine's a little personal. January 1999, while I was working, I actually sustained a tri-fracture. It was a compound fracture of my left ankle. And it was, I worked as a mountain bike cop, and I actually slid on some ice on my bicycle of all things, and ended up fracturing my ankle quite severely. And the interesting part of it was, obviously, one, you know, having a bone sticking out of the side of your leg is pretty terrifying, obviously, but then them not really sure right away as to when I would actually be able to go back to work. Any cop's going to tell you, regardless of what kind of injury, you know, we all joke that, you know, hey, we want another day off, that kind of thing. But when they first tell you that, hey, we're not sure if it's going to be 6 months, 8 months, or a year before you're back to work, you start really questioning things and start, you know, wondering, you know, how bad things really are going to be. Fortunately for me, was able to have it surgically repaired, got some free hardware, that kind of deal. And then I was back to work well under 6 months then, you know, from the original estimate. So it was definitely a good situation as far as recovery goes, but definitely quite scary. So,
Anybody been shot at?
knock on wood, no, thanks.
Hey, just
Yeah.
me?
I have.
All right. That would have probably upped the accident for terrifying, wouldn't it?
Coworkers have, but I have not.
Yeah, I know enough people that unfortunately have been on both ends of that, but that's good, you know,
Yeah.
as long as I know them.
I
about you,
agree
Frank?
that the being shot at was pretty terrifying. However, I have to say, once I recognized my friend's face, it took over.
Your friend? Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm about to say, I wonder if your friend shot at you. Wait, no, your friend was in
No,
there.
no.
All right. Frank, you still with us?
I'm still, yeah, I got bumped for some reason, but I'm back. I have never done a shooting or been directly involved in a shooting, but when I was on the Eastern Shore and part of the SWAT team with Wycomico County, one of the guys on the team with me was involved in a shooting right directly in front of me. It wasn't a person, it happened to be a Doberman that was attacking, but still you kind of get that feeling of, oh, what just happened? And you take your training and you go forward. And luckily the dog survived.
You know what's funny is I found that I could shoot a person easier than I could shoot a dog.
Yeah.
And that don't know what that says about me, but the dog's just instinctive. The person knows what they're doing.
And how many people have you shot, John?
None, thank you. All right, so moving on. This question comes from David. And it's, if you could do any part of your job over again or your career over again, what would it be?
Oh, wow.
That's a good question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Amber, you're looking pensive. I'm going to start with you.
Yeah. So I think for me, I think that I would have maybe lateral to the Frederick County Sheriff's Office a little bit sooner. But other than that, I think that I really enjoyed my career path thus far, and I've been afforded a lot of opportunities enjoying my career and things that I've been interested in and training. So I really don't think that I would change much of anything, honestly.
Okay. Joe, let's go you two this time.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, I had a great career at my former agency, achieved a lot of obvious personal success as far as rank. So I don't know that I would change other than, and again, you know, I don't want to just keep saying I stole Amber's words, but I truly.
I am awesome, Joe. It's okay.
Yeah, well, you know, you are. Let's you rock. I truly enjoy the aspect of leaving my old department and coming to where I work now. I mean, the sense of community working in a small town, small police department. Clearly, you know, I came in at the top, so there's a little bit of, you know, difference there in that regard. But definitely, I mean, the atmosphere here is so much different from the atmosphere at my old job, just from the sense of community and how the people treat you here versus, and I even joked at a supervisors meeting with my supervisors one time that, you know, like the people here in the community actually like us. You know, there was never anybody that came to my police department at my old job that ever came in and ever had anything nice to say. So that's the only thing I could think of, is that maybe I would have did the small town thing first or longer or whatever. But again, I mean, I don't want to knock what I've had prior to here whatsoever, because I did have a great career there. So.
It's nice when they use all their fingers when they wave at you, isn't it?
It's amazing.
Yes, absolutely.
And the fact that when they bring you food and you know they're not trying to poison you.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Barb, what about you?
There's only one thing I wish I could have done longer. I was able to do a temporary assignment in our forensics unit. Again, I said I liked putting those puzzles together. And I was absolutely fascinated with collecting crime scene evidence. However, I was only allowed, I stayed for about 3 months and then I had to go back to patrol. I do wish I had had the opportunity to take a full-time job in forensics, but they just never had any openings, because it's one of those jobs, once you get there, everybody wants to stay. It's pretty cool.
I remember when you were trying to get into the academy, that was a big thing too.
Yes,
All right, Frank.
That's a very sought-after position. Very lucky.
Look, it's because Amber's so awesome. I got part of her here. And then,
I see in the background.
so if I could do it all over again, first thing is, yes, I would. I'd start all over at 30 years if I could go back 30 years, I'd do it all again. Probably the major thing I would change is in 1990, I would have realized that that was my first torch run and have been involved right from that get-go, had I known more. At that time that I did that run in Wycomico County, I was kind of the rookie, so the sheriff just said, go run. He didn't tell us why. He didn't give us a reason. I met no athletes, and I didn't have any purpose except that we were doing something for the sheriff because it was an order. Had I gotten some word, some encouragement, met an athlete, learned what we were doing, I think it really would have changed my involvement. I would have much, much, much sooner. And then if I had to go back out of all the ranks that I've had, sergeant, because I could affect the most change at that level with the officers. I think I had the most fun as a sergeant, especially when I worked in a problem-oriented policing unit and had great guys around me. And really, that was some of the best fun I had as a police officer.
Yeah, your first line supervisors are where the rubber meets the road. They really are.
Yeah.
All right, so this comes from Faith McLucky. So everyone's going to have a different answer, and I want to hear what you do to manage this. The question was, do they sleep in the morning and then get up at night? So we've all worked shift work. So I want you to tell you what the rough things about shift work are, and how do you work around them? How do you manage your sleep schedule? If you have a family, how do you spend family time? And Joe, we'll start with you.
Okay, so when I started my career, my first assignment was actually on the midnight shift, and I can say to you that it was awesome. Of course, I was single, and I'm glad you bring up the part about family life, and I had some roommates and all, but yeah, I mean, it was no big deal. It was quite awesome. And I got home at usually somewhere between 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, and I slept till whatever in the afternoon. Obviously, you just had some darker curtains, that kind of deal. Where it got different for me though is, yes, going on throughout my career, when I made the rank of sergeant, I had to go back to patrol from, at the time I worked in a training academy. And so when I went back to patrol, going back, I'm thinking, all right, yeah, great, I'm going back to patrol. I want to go back to midnights. Now, of course, I had a wife and I had a kid, and things were completely different. And you quickly realize that, yes, you got to figure out. My daughter was very young still at the time, but, so we were fortunate enough that she went to like daycare during the day so that I could then sleep. But then it was weird. You got up at like 3 in the afternoon just to go get your kid from daycare, all because so you could sleep. And then, so you do have to flex a lot when there's, family. But the important part is that you have to make sure, or you hope that your family can be just as flexible with you in order to make that work. But yeah, it's definitely, it's different in regards to, obviously most people, yeah, they go to bed at some time, in the evening and get up early in the morning, where, working overnight, it's not that, that kind of deal. But I personally, again, I did enjoy it. When I get to work nights now, I enjoy it. I think, going out at night is when you really see people who are at their best sometimes in police work. But yeah, I mean, I enjoy it. So.
All right, Barb, let's go to this time with you.
Well, I started, much like Joe, I was assigned to a day work shift when I started, but 1 week into my training, all of my field training officers were out for either an injury, a new baby, or got promoted. So I went to a midnight shift. I did midnight for 12 years and loved it. I was very accustomed to the schedule. I would go to sleep, much like Joe was saying, around 7 o'clock in the morning, wake up in the afternoon. I would do my workout and I'd go to work. And I actually was probably in the best shape and best health then because it worked for me. That's how I also met James. We ended up being on that same type of schedule, and then we met, and the rest is history there. But now we have a little one, and that's thrown a big curveball in my life. Because I was very set in that midnight schedule, and so was James. I now work day work, and he now works night work. So we have dinner together every night, and we always have our weekends off together, which is nice. But I sleep at nighttime. Well, if I get to sleep, I sleep at nighttime, and he sleeps during the day. So it's difficult for us, but we make it work. And I do have to say, I'm sorry I have to go, but I just wanted to say it was great to see everybody, but James has to go to work, so I have to go get Alyssa to bed. So it was good to see you all. Thank you for letting me share.
All right, Barb, thank you. All right, Frank, what about you?
I've worked every shift that there is. I'm still in the office now, so I do anywhere from an 8 to 12-hour day still. And I would do it all over again. I love coming to work. When you find something you love doing, like I'm hoping that a lot of the athletes like doing the Special Olympics, when you do it, you don't need to be prodded or poked to go. You just go do it. And I could work any shift. I prefer the midnight shift, believe it or not. I'm a night owl. See my moon? I prefer to be up all night long rather than being awake during the day. But I've done it all, and I've enjoyed every minute of it.
How'd you juggle the family with it?
The family, I have a very loving, understanding wife who allows me to be me, which means that she knows how much I'm involved in the law enforcement torch run and being a police officer, and she's always been by my side throughout the whole thing.
What about the kids? Because I know you got, active kids, and how do you juggle all that with your rotating shifts and schedules?
It's a lot of coordination. My two sons are now in their 20s. One's about to graduate from college, and the other's working full time. We all through high school and everything like that, you just have to find the ways to make the time to be there for them. And when you do that for them, they'll do that for you. And that's always the way it's been at the Tewey household. All for one and one for all, and you make time for each other.
Great. Amber.
So my previous agency, we worked 28 days of day shift and 28 days of night shift. So they were 12-hour shifts. We worked Monday, Tuesday. We were off Wednesday, Thursday. Then we worked Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then we were off Monday, Tuesday. We worked Wednesday, Thursday. And then we were off Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Before I left that agency, they then switched to 4 10-hour days, which is miserable. I'm not a fan of that by any means. And so when I switched agencies, they still had the rotating shift that was great, but now we have 3 rotations on our patrol team. So you either work 6 a.m. to 5:30 p.m., you either work 3 p.m. to 2:30 a.m., or you work 7 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. And it's 2 weeks of that rotation each shift backwards, which sounds very confusing, but I think the hardest part of that when I was on patrol was after 1 week, I got adjusted to that sleeping schedule of sleeping during the day. And then sleeping at night was difficult, but after that first week, you're fine. You learn how, as a law enforcement officer, you learn how to adjust your sleep schedule. You learn how to run on 0.2 sleep hours. If you're interested in like working out and stuff like that, you work and find time to do that, because law enforcement, after you're in the academy, yes, you're in the greatest shape of your life, but as you get out of the academy, you find lesser and lesser time because your job is your responsibility. You're not just getting paid to work out like you do in the academy. So you really have to work about work-life balance in order to stay healthy and to stay in shape and to continue doing well in your job. For me, socially, my home life, it actually worked out really well when I first started dating after I got out of the police academy, because one, the person knew that I was police, so they were used to my crazy schedule. And 2, I was able to travel and visit them while I was still working, even though they were working a normal day shift. So now as a community services deputy, I work I'm supposed to work Monday through Friday, but that doesn't happen. A lot of activities happen after work hours. So I work 14-hour days a lot of times. I go in the office in the morning, do my paperwork, and then my evenings are filled with meetings, events, educational programs, things like that. So you just find time, and thankfully I have a very supportive fiance who loves me and even loves our athletes. Joe, you're shaking your head. You know Sarah, yeah. Elena, Adam, all you guys who have met Sarah, you guys are part of our family, and I don't have kids, but I don't need them because I have such a large family with you guys. So it's great.
All right. So this question comes from Sam, and I'm going to expound on it a little bit. I want, what's your favorite moment, both from your law enforcement career and from your torch run time? So, Frank, we're going to tee you up first.
Oh, you give me the hard ones because
Come on, that's an easy
I
one.
can't.
I was gonna say that's easy.
Yeah.
Come on.
There's so many. All right. So give me the question again, one more time.
Sure. What is your favorite moment, both on the law enforcement side and on the torch run side?
Oh my God. Well, the torch run son, I'm gonna say my favorite moment was my spark moment where I got the aha. And that's when I went to my very first international conference in Indianapolis, and I heard Andrew Peterson, an athlete from Indiana, speak on the Pacers arena floor. And he spoke about the disadvantages he had in life and that he wanted to end his life because he had no friends, couldn't make friends. Friends made fun of him. And then somewhere someone says, come with me. And he took him to a Special Olympics event. And at that Special Olympics event were some police officers. And Andrew, from that moment forward, became an athlete extraordinaire where he runs marathons and other types of races now. And he became a advocate for Special Olympics and the law enforcement torch run, where that speech he gave was the culmination of everything he learned through Special Olympics. And he gave it without any notes, without missing a beat. And he spoke in front of 1,500 police officers. And that was truly amazing to me and something that showed me exactly what Special Olympics, with the support of the law enforcement torch run, can do for an individual. And if we touched Andrew in that way, there's many other ways that we can help other athletes around the world. So that was my great LETR moment. As a police officer, oh my God, that day I got hired, I guess.
All right. Amber, let's go with you next.
All right, so my law enforcement one, I've had quite a few, but I think my most favorite is when I graduated the police academy, we were able to have anybody put our badge on us when we walk across the stage, a lot like graduation. And so I had my older brother pin my badge on me, and he is a white-collar crime correction officer in New Jersey. So it meant so much to me that, one, he was there, and two, that he was able to pin my badge on me because it was such an honor to like do him proud. And my other older brother is retired military. So like following in the footsteps of dedicating themselves to others, it was just a great honor to have him there and do that for me. It always makes me feel really, really good looking back at those pictures. LETR, there are a lot, and obviously our aha moments and stuff like that are really pertinent, but recently I received an award nominated by my fellow law enforcement peers, and that is one of the most amazing things in the whole entire world and will forever mean the world to me because, we don't get into this job and law enforcement to be thanked. We don't do it because we get paid bajillions of dollars. And yes, bajillions is a real number. Look it up. I said it. I made it. I'm awesome. I did it. We get spit on. We get called all bad names, and we still go to work and we still love our job. But that nomination from my peers was something that I will forever hold dear to my heart. And that moment happened at our LETR regional kickoff meeting. And it's seriously like, I'll forever be so grateful for my peers, my family. It's not even, you guys aren't even my peers. You're my family. Always have been and always will be. So I'm forever grateful for that.
Can I have $20?
Yep, I got you. I'll Venmo or Zelly or a spot. I don't know the latest trends.
Now you're officially family.
Yeah, I got you.
Cash only, Amber. Cash.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was like, I'll send it to you.
Joe, what do you have?
So law enforcement is easy. The day that I received a phone call and then drove up here on my way home and stopped at the police department where I work now to sign my contract offer.
Yeah.
Clearly, it was the reward personally, but also, again, for my family, that I was able to get this job. So again, that's definitely by far my favorite moment, law enforcement wise. From torch run perspective, quite simple. Again, talking about family in general. In 2015, I received the Flame of Hope Award, and the neatest part of that award for me in general, by far, was that my dear friend Danielle and Betsy managed to sneak not only my wife, but my
Oh, yeah.
mother-in-law into the ceremony, unbeknownst to me, so that when they actually called my name out and I'm walking up and they were there, it was a teary-eyed moment. But the fact of the matter is that it really made it a big round circle, in that family does become part of this movement. As you all know, at different torch run events, my daughter's been there. She's participated. My wife is constantly there. We all have managed to not only become a part of this family, that we're talking to on the computer, but we have infected our own families at home and brought them into this movement. And so that for me was just absolutely amazing. We joke in my house that my wife and I don't have a lot of secrets, but yet they managed to secretly get them in there and then have that happen, which is absolutely amazing. So.
That is
And
nice.
Joe's wife's been around enough that they think it's my wife. True story.
You should know she's in earshot of this meeting too, which is great. So
Hi,
yeah,
sweetheart.
She's a lovely woman.
she's laughing.
Hi, honey.
Since Joe said the word infected, let's go with this question here. And this will be the last question, official question, and we'll see if there's anything from any of the athletes on the line that they want to ask us. And so, what is your daily safety protocol during the COVID-19? So what are you guys doing differently at work because of the COVID-19?
Wow.
And I see Frank's reaching for his mask probably. Joe, let's start with you.
So, first of all, I will tell you, starting with our own schedules, we have completely adjusted and realigned our schedules to where not even our command staff now are in the building at the same time. The only time that we have 2 cops in the building is because we're processing an arrest. That's the first thing right off the bat. We've adjusted schedules to where we've split our squads. We actually had to add personnel because the schools are closed. So we added personnel into our patrol squads so that we could then create 2 squads out of every patrol squad. Also that we can split them in half and then have now manipulated their schedules to where, again, like I said, we've put in, we don't have a assigned prisoner transport vehicle for arrest, but what we've actually done is taken one of our older cars and assigned that as the prisoner transport vehicle now, so that whenever an arrest is made, our officers aren't transporting anybody in. We're using one car so that obviously we can then clean up. Same deal in the station as far as processing goes. Everything has been downsized and again, trying to control the contamination. Now, from the personal perspective, I thought, yeah, Frank was reaching for a mask. Mine's laying around here somewhere. But yeah, everybody has a mask, obviously. When you're in the station, whether you're on calls, whether, whatever it is you're doing, period, bottom line is you have a mask on. When you come into our station, if you have to come in, you have to take your temperature with an infrared thermometer and obviously make sure that you don't have any kind of a fever, that kind of deal. And then sanitization wazoo. I mean, I don't even know what word you can come up with from hand wipes to everybody's been given some sort of, gel cleaner, you name it, wiping down cars, wiping down your gun belts, everything from your actual firearm, that kind of deal. Our station has changed our procedures dramatically. We have a station, again, where we welcome the community to come in. We have an ATM in the lobby. Community meetings are held in our conference rooms, from everything that you can think of under the sun. We are a community police department. All of that has stopped. Nobody is even allowed in our lobby. Of all things, going back to, you asked about my tasks in the very beginning. I had to buy an intercom system for our lobby. We didn't have one. We have, obviously you're allowed to walk in and speak to a dispatcher through, a big glass type speaker system, but we didn't have an intercom system. We had to close the doors. So we had to buy an intercom, install it in the lobby, and now people can't even enter our station. The other I guess crazy thing is, social media wise, we are constantly now trying to talk to our community members about different things and reminding them of the protocols. Our city in and of itself is a pedestrian driven city. We're a big tourist attraction, but we've had to go so far as to, like, the one thing, we have a boardwalk down on the waterfront, and we've had to work with the city where we've had to limit the flow of pedestrian traffic. And so now we're using social media to try to remind people of all these different things. And to say we flipped like a pancake and are doing things completely different than what we were doing months ago is really just in a nutshell how to wrap all that up.
Yeah, I think you and the rest of us here. Either Frank or Bain is up in there. So what do you got to say?
I'll show you. Here's my mask. I got my Star Wars mask to wear at work.
No Disney? Well, that is Disney, I guess.
It is Disney now, yeah.
It is Disney. They bought Star Wars. Yeah.
And then for what the mask doesn't do, we've gotten a couple of these things.
Ah, you were prepared. Look at that.
Yeah. No. We're doing just what all the medical professionals and the governor is recommending. We are social distancing here at work. We have our officers. We have not stopped being police officers. If you need help, we're coming to help. We're still doing our jobs, but we're doing it more smartly. Just like we're here on Zoom with all the athletes, which I love watching everybody. We're using this tool more to communicate with each other. We're keeping our field operations folks, the ones that drive the cars, out in the field, serving only the most serious of the warrants and doing all the paperwork services that are required by the court. And then our courthouse employees, we've given them stationary patrols. They have one assignment, one position in the building that they man for their day. And we only have one person that rotates around to give the relief that they need during the day. We're wearing our gloves, we're wearing our mask, we're using our little hand sanitizer and refilling it. So we're doing our part to be safe. And I love having watched a lot of the activities of the friends of mine on Facebook on what they're doing to be safe, that they're getting their exercise in a smart way, that they're keeping their social distancing and they're staying home and taking care of their family members. And that's my concern, is I want you all to take care of yourselves.
Thank you, Frank. Amber.
So a lot like everybody else, we are, keeping social distancing. We haven't changed our protocol as far as being out in the community. Something that we did change, though, and I know we were talking about this, Joe mentioned this a little bit, so we've been going back and forth with things that are the same and similar and things like that. So something that our agency did for our officers, our deputies, is they changed the uniform. So typically we have a brown uniform that we wear, both either short sleeves or long sleeves, and they look like this. And this is typically our uniform. And after April 1st, we go to short sleeves. But because the coronavirus and pandemic has occurred, this uniform is very difficult and has to be dry cleaned a lot of times. So instead of washing this every day like it's required for us to do our work, because we work, like I said, 2 days on, 3 days off, things like that, we've switched to what's called a soft uniform. And that still means that we're wearing our bulletproof vests and we're still wearing our duty belts, but our shirts look a little bit different, and they look like this.
Amber's got props, man.
Oh,
Yeah,
I do.
Curtains.
So it's a lot like a regular polo like I'm wearing now, and it's a lot easier to throw in the wash when you're out of your shift and then dry it and be done for the next shift. So this has been a fantastic thing. We wear these with 511s or khakis, or the khakis with lots of pockets. So they help deputies feel a little bit more comfortable, because when we do go into homes, sometimes we have to wear full suits, not just our masks. So this helps us not sweat as much. It also helps us be able to move still very smoothly with all of our protective gear on, which includes not just the small Bane masks, but our big heavy duty masks when people are super sick. Because I think it was, Frank who said, we don't stop being police. It's one of the jobs that we have, a lot like nurses and doctors. We work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in our county. We are out on the roads. We are taking calls. We are making sure that people know that we are available, and we don't want things to happen on our watch because people are choosing not to follow the rules.
Great. Well, thank you. Jason, you think we can squeeze like 3 questions in from athletes?
Yeah, sure can. So we got a question earlier in the evening. Have you ever had to tase someone or use tasers?
I have.
Froze. You froze there for a second.
You got one from Amber?
Yep.
Joe?
I'm not even trained on it.
Yeah, no, we were pre-taser.
Can you repeat what you said? It froze. I'm sorry.
Have you ever tased anybody?
Have I ever tased anybody? I have not tased anybody, but I have been tased.
All right. Yeah. What the athletes need to remember is that we always use our words first. Not a straight taser. We always communicate and use our words first.
Good point. Good point. This one, if Amber doesn't mind, just specifically to her, someone asked, would you ever be interested in being a unified partner with your sister?
Yes, absolutely. So my sister Anna, she played sports when she was younger, but then in high school she had a job training program where when she was in school she had half day school, half day of work, and she ended up continuing with her job after she graduated from high school and really enjoyed her job. So she chose to do her job over her sports, and she likes spending a lot of time with our nieces who are at home, and they kind of look up to her like the aunt that they get to have a big aunt that they can look up to and do things with. So she prefers to do her job rather than play sports. Sports aren't for everybody, apparently. So.
What?
All right, Jason, how about one more?
One more. Yeah, what kind of training before, and law enforcement, the torch run isn't really training, I guess, per se, but what kind of training do you get currently, or did you have working with people with intellectual disabilities?
Well, that's a good question. Frank, you want to take a stab at that?
Yeah, I'll take a stab. When in the police academy, we learned very briefly about it, and I went to the police academy in 1989, so that was a long time before a lot of understood.
Woo! Were any of you guys born then?
I don't think so. Not I'm looking at most of the young athletes.
I was.
But as I went along in my career, different things taught you different ways of handling things. And I did have my biggest exposure just before getting involved with the law enforcement torch run, learning it through the police academy and one of the block of instructions that they gave. But my true understanding of someone with an intellectual disability or a developmental disability came through my involvement with the law enforcement torch run. There is no better tool, there's no better mechanism, there is no better community policing than a law enforcement torch run to understand the population of our intellectually disabled, not intellectually abled persons in a different way.
All right, Joe.
I would just echo, unfortunately, no, we did not have a lot of training with intellectually disabled people. There is a very small block in the academy that they kind of and it's a check the box kind of thing. It's quite honestly sad. And then, going throughout the years I know there's another program that State Highway Administration through the Office of Highway Safety puts on in regards to encountering people driving that have some sort of intellectual disability. Frank's point, Amber's point, everybody's point, that is why, quite honestly, I know that I love the LETR using, and I'll use that word, using you all to come in. I see my good friend Michael Hoyt on here. I've had him actually come speak to academy classes on a personal basis. There was a cool question in one of some of the other advanced questions about what more can the LETR do to help us in our jobs. just that, actual physical interaction. I'll go back to Michael. Michael did a ride along with me, when I worked in my old job, and we went to every station at that time that I was in charge of, and we went to roll calls and we talked, and we also went on a couple of calls for service. And we've now since done it up here in Havre Grace with a local athlete. But if your local programs can work that out to where athletes physically come in and can actually meet with police officers, because sadly the training that we receive, there's really not a lot that, we're fortunate because we do this, but not every officer does. And so, yeah, so if we can spin it backwards and use you all as the training aid, then I think that would probably be a way to improve things.
Good point. Amber.
So I actually get to be a part of our training services for our new recruits. I haven't experienced police academy over the past 6 years, but our agency brings in Pathfinders, which one of our athletes, Josh Smith, works for and with, and it helps our agency engage with individuals with intellectual disabilities on all spectrums. I also go into schools and teach a program called Be Safe. I don't know if any of you athletes have been a part of that, but it's where law enforcement officers go into schools and educational facilities and teach individuals with intellectual disabilities on how to engage with police, signs to recognize, how to self-disclose. And this is something that Chief Nesky, myself, and a couple others, wink, wink, have been working on to kind of get more involved and see how we can work that into additional law enforcement agencies and schools as well, because it's very simple. It gets so much information to all kinds of people, and it's vital for us all to get along and to continue to be safe.
Great. And I'm going to give the panelists a moment just to have some closing comments before we wrap this up. Frank, we'll start with you.
Oh, I just got this. I pulled Jim Smuts.
Nice. That's why you're the director.
Yeah, thank you, everybody, for this opportunity. I hope everybody's being safe. We're still here for you. And as soon as the all clear is given, we're going to be out in full force as the law enforcement torch run for Special Olympics.
All right. Amber, I'm going to bounce right back to you.
All right. Well, I just want to thank everybody for the opportunities, several opportunities that you always offer me. If anybody ever needs me, you know how to reach me. Thank you guys for being fantastic rock stars. Keep looking on Facebook. I know I haven't updated in a while, but things have been a little cray-cray, so I'll get back to it. You guys stay healthy and keep smiling.
All right. Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for this opportunity. LETR truly rocks. Certainly try to do what you can do to stay healthy. We will be back. We'll be back at games. There will be, at some point in time where we'll actually be able to high five each other again. And so just, stay strong, stay healthy, and we'll be there soon.
All right. And I just want to take a moment to thank all the panelists for taking time out to answer the amazing questions that we had. Thank you for all the athletes that participated and that submitted these very well thought out questions. So a couple of them are really, really great kind of head scratchers, made you think about where you've been and why you've done some of the things you do. And until we're all back again together, be safe. We look forward to seeing more videos on Facebook, and everybody have an outstanding evening. See ya.
Yeah, thanks, John. Thanks, Jason.
Yes,
thank you
so much.
Thank you.
Hi, Joe.
Thank you.
Hey, Captain!
Hey, my friend.
Thank you.
On the screen, guys.
Thank you.
Turn off.
Fun, thank you.
Jason, turn off, please.
Thank you.
It's so nice to see the officers, though.
Yep.
It's first time to see a group of officers. Hi, David.
It's,
Nice to see everyone.
All right, great job, everyone.
We're all suggest yes.
I have a question.
What question?
Me too.
This is the long goodbye. We'll go for 15 minutes here.
I have a question.
Bailing out, guys.
Goodbye, Jason.
Bye.
Goodbye. I'm going to hang out.
Jason,
Yes.
can I have a question?
Go ahead.
Okay, so one day I actually